Sonic the Hedgehog for NES? What? Now, of course, Sonic the Hedgehog was on Sega's 8-bit system, the Master System, but of course he never officially appeared on Nintendo's 8-bit system. Makes sense, seeing as Sega and Nintendo were at each other's necks during the 80s and 90s, particularly during the 90s. But thanks to bootleggers, a Sonic game did come to the NES called Somari, which was a demake of Sonic the Hedgehog 1 where you played as a Mario-esque character. And I reviewed that over a year ago and I said it was pretty terrible. But if there's one thing that's pretty good about the Sonic fanbase, it's the fans. Most of the fans. And some of these fans took it upon themselves to make Sumari into a good game. This is Sonic the Hedgehog, the NES improvement. And that's what we're going to be looking at on today's review. Welcome to Stuff We Play, home of everything weird and retro. And if that sounds cool to you, why not subscribe? And today we're looking at Sonic the Hedgehog, the NES improvement. A fan-made ROM hack of a bootleg. Wow, this is getting confusing. I should probably make a video explaining that. But essentially, the bootleg was made and intended to be sold to people, which is illegal. The fans saw this and was like, hey, this actually doesn't look completely terrible unlike most bootlegs. There's potential here, so let's make it better. Now, of course, fans have gone and done this with bootlegs before. What with the fan-made improvement of that version of Final Fantasy VII for NES and that version of Pokemon Yellow for NES, and the same thing was done here. First off, instead of Sumari, we have Sonic himself, sporting a sprite that looks a bit closer to his Genesis sprite than the earlier Master System titles. The game itself looks great, though admittedly most of the graphics were left unchanged, which is fine because even back when I looked at Sumari, I thought it looked pretty good, especially for a game that's just an 8-bit demake of Sonic 1. Now I feel like I should make an important note now. There has never been a proper 8-bit demake of Sonic 1. But what about Sonic 1 on Master System? While some of the zones there share the same names as in their Genesis counterparts, all the level designs and half the zones are completely new. But back to Sonic on NES. In this game, you play as Sonic the Hedgehog going to South Island to stop Dr. Robotnik, who would later be retconned in the West as Dr. Eggman, in order to free the animals from being turned into robots. What a heroic guy that Sonic dude is. This game takes you through several different zones. Green Hill, Marble, Springyard, Labyrinth, Starlight, and Final. What's that, you say? What about Scrap Brain Zone? I don't know, for some reason they omitted it completely from this version, which means that you just kind of abruptly transfer from Starlight Zone to the Final Zone. Another thing that's interesting here is that the gameplay mechanics have been greatly tightened. And Somari, your Sonic-esque dude who actually looks like Mario, was rather slippery and very imprecise. However, here Sonic feels fantastic. He has a great amount of weight and he has a great sense of momentum. The only thing that seems to be problematic here is loops seem to be a little glitchy, and sometimes you'll get stuck halfway through a loop and have to jump down and spin dash up it. By the way, that's something that wasn't in Sonic 1 originally but is present here, the spin dash, and it feels great. One thing I should also mention is that level design here is remarkably unchanged from Somari. I mentioned how in that game there are a lot of cheap hits and whatnot. Those hits are unfortunately still here. But thankfully, due to the improved play mechanics, and I don't know why, but it feels like rings are more abundant, it's never a death sentence. Except in Labyrinth Zone. Labyrinth Zone feels way more sluggish than even in the Genesis version. I just hated it. But the boss fight seemed relatively tame compared to that, especially since bubbles actually spawn with you. What a nice bunch of folks giving me bubbles in the Labyrinth Zone boss, those nice game hacker dev bootleg people. So overall, even though the level design isn't one-to-one the Genesis game and is actually a little worse, this game, because of the improved physics, it's not a deal breaker. In fact, it's still a ton of fun. And what also aids in this is the soundtrack. Now, Somari had 8-bit remakes of the Genesis tunes, but it sounded a bit like this. And it made my ears bleed. This version, however, had a proper composer who went in using the tool Famitracker to make proper demakes of the Genesis tunes. And I'll be honest, some of these I actually like better than the Genesis version. Now what's also interesting here is the special stage / Chaos Emerald system. Special stages like in Sonic 1 on Genesis aren't present here. However, if you collect 50 rings and get to the end of a stage that doesn't have a boss in it, you will still be sent to a special stage. And what's cool about it is, I guess since they couldn't replicate the Genesis stages, they replicated the extra levels from the Master System version. and that's really cool. And I don't know if that was in Somari or not. Honestly, the terrible physics in Somari made it so I could never complete a zone of more than 50 rings, but wow, it was a nice touch, and they look and sound fantastic. I had a great time with this game, and it's not as good as the Master System version or even the Genesis version, but it is a great time, and I absolutely adore it. The music is great, the gameplay is tight, and it looks good, even if the graphics are mostly unchanged from Somari, but Somari was really good looking for a bootleg. What I'm saying is I recommend this game. You should try this game, because Sonic 1 for NES is a good game. Throughout this video, I've really mentioned Sonic the Hedgehog for Master System a lot, haven't I? You know, I actually played that game quite a bit back in the day. Not actually the Master System version, but the Game Gear version. So let's take a look at the Sonic the Hedgehog Master System / Game Gear games, but which one should we start with first? Oh, Sonic Pocket Adventure for the Neo Geo Pocket Color. Not a Game Gear or a Master System game, but definitely a great way to start off the Sonic 8-bit-a-thon, 8-bit Sonic Marathon, summer of stuff we play Sonic Marathon. So next time you see me doing a Sonic review, we're going to be looking at Sonic Pocket Adventure for Neo Geo Pocket Color. Oh yeah, I'm ready. But anyways, with that, what are your experiences with 8-bit Sonic games? Let me know down in the comment section below. And while you're at, why don't you subscribe to Stuff We Play for more great content like this. So with that, thank you very much for watching. Stay classy, and I'll see you next time.